Hey everyone, welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast, the ultimate blueprint to self-love and inner peace. I'm your host, Danielle Van. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, a life coach to women, meditation teacher, and author, I've spent my life studying and learning from the stories that make us human. It's my passion and goal to help you shift your mindset and create a lifelong revolution to help you reach your greatest potential. Have you heard of human design? It's a holistic self-knowledge system that is a tool to help you understand how you function and the individual conditions in which you need to thrive. When we understand our human design, we have the power to unlock our personal strength, dive into our instincts, intuition, and develop our personal empowerment. I sat down with Dr. Veronica Anderson to walk us through the human design and the Kolbe Index in a fun, educational, and eye-opening conversation. It's a deep conversation, one that brings in mind, body, and spirit. You'll want to listen to the very end as Dr. Anderson offers the ability to learn about yourself through these fantastic systems right from her website. So sit back and get comfortable. The Get Your Life Together Girl podcast starts right now. We're talking about something today that in so many circles we don't talk about. And it's about trusting our gut, trusting our intuition, about being connected all the way through mind, body, and spirit. And I have the expert with me today, Dr. Veronica Anderson. Please introduce yourself. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Dr. Veronica is what everybody likes to call me. It just flows very well. And I have a long name and a complicated name. I was telling you before the show. My full name, I'm going to let the audience know it, is Dr. Veronica Anderson de Digby. And I want to share that with you because I got to the Digby when I married my second husband, who was born in West Africa, in Benin, which is a country right next to Nigeria that most people had never heard of. When I was introduced to him, I had never heard of the country. I was embarrassed because I was like, how can I be an Ivy League educated doctor and there's this place in the world I've never heard of? I want to share the meaning of the name, the Digby, because the Digby means slowly goes life in the language of fawn. Slowly goes life. And I share that with us all because it really is the truth. I think that we all want to rush everything. Yeah. And especially when we're talking about spiritual elements in our journey, you cannot rush it. It's going to happen when it's going to happen. And so one of the tips is to just calm down and be patient. And whatever you have to do, number one, learn how to be calmed down and wait, because the universe will provide. So we'll talk about how to learn to calm down and know to follow the signs that are being presented to you in the universe. And this is with your professional life and with your relationships. So let's go.
We are in such a good, beautiful spot to have an amazing conversation. I will tell you, when you said just to slow down, I got this pit in my stomach because you're talking to me. But, spiritual growth is such a beautiful journey. And it does start with slowing down and listening. Can you give us a true understanding of what that means? Intuitively listening to our intention, listening to our inner voice. I think that's where we start today.
Well, you have to learn how to listen to yourself and tune out everything else. That is hard because we haven't been taught that. Right. We've been taught to listen to everything but ourselves. We've been taught to listen to our parents. We've been taught to listen to school. We've been taught to listen to government, institutions. So we've been taught to listen to everything except our inner knowing. And once we begin to listen to our inner knowing, then we finally figure out who we are and trust ourselves. And that's when I started on this pathway. I was confused about who I was, just like everybody else is, because we all come in to this world in the same way,
Mm-hmm.
where we are being imprinted with everybody's everything else.
Right.
So this is where I like to talk about, well, how do we get to who we are? And I just used the term imprinting.
Mm-hmm.
I like to talk about the 3 I's, which are imprinting, instinct, and intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Have to understand these differences to understand who you are. And then once you understand them, you can understand, how do I use this knowledge to actually be who I am? So you have to go from knowing to doing to actually being. That means it's the essence of you. And so that's why I start here. So the imprinting happens in the first about 7 years in your life, and you're an unconscious mind. And you've probably heard this before. You've probably shared this with your audience before.
Yes.
But this is when you're consciously not really aware. Everything else, I told you what everything else is being put on you. Society, culture, family, religion, education, institutions, wherever you were plopped in this particular incarnation, because you're on a soul journey. I'm right now on my soul journey, and I am appearing to you as this particular spirit called Dr. Veronica. So here I am plopped here, but I've been given all this stuff to live out this life with before I even knew what was going on. I wasn't conscious of what was going on.
Right.
So if you meet in people who say, I always keep picking the wrong relationship, how come I don't know this or that? It's that imprinting where you just feel drawn to something and comfortable with something, safe with something, even if it's dysfunctional, even if intellectually you know it's dysfunctional, it's going to feel right to you. Because it was around you, it was imprinted, and it was familiar. And back in those first 7 years in life, that's where you got your safety and security by the people that were around you, even when they were dysfunctional.
Right.
Even sometimes they were doing things that were hurting you. You got familiar with that pattern. Right. And that is really, you have to open your eyes to that, because then you can, as Dr. Joe Dispenza would say, break the habit of being yourself, right?
Right, exactly.
How do you break that habit? First, understand that that's there. There's no blame. Forgive everybody, okay? Right. And I know that's hard. Forgiveness of everybody. Forgive yourself, because you might have said, I'm just hearing this for the first time. We think now, because there's an internet, we're supposed to know everything in the world.
Yes.
Everything. Okay. But no, that's not the way it is. You cannot know everything. And so here you are sitting here listening. So imprinting, we all have that. It's all something that your whole life is going to be coming out, and you're going to realize that these ideas of some of what you think and feel have been given to you by other people. The next part is your instincts. Now, the instincts are a part of your brain, but if you think about your brain and your mind, you can break it into 3 parts. Your intellect is your cognitive brain. And in Western culture and society, we worship intellect.
Yes, we do.
Reasoning and thinking, high IQ, Mensa, all that stuff. We think that that is the know all, end all, be all. If somebody scores high on these particular tests, and somebody can give you a bunch of facts, and they seem like they can give facts and you don't know how they know their facts or whatever. That's like the Western intellectual intelligence. I'm not going to make an aside about this, because the interesting thing about intelligence is very cultural. So I told you that my husband was born in West Africa. When I go to Africa, I feel like I don't know hardly anything. The type of intelligence you need is going to be different based on where you are. Absolutely. So when I'm there, where there's everything has been imprinted and known differently. I'm like, I don't assume, because I'm smart, because I have an Ivy League degree, because I've read Wikipedia, because I've studied, even now, because I've lived with a man who is born in that culture and society, I still feel like these people know a lot that I don't know, even though a lot of them don't have a formal education. It's just, I don't feel like, now I probably could. I don't feel like I could. It would be difficult for me to feel like I could really survive and thrive in that atmosphere, because it's so the type of intelligence needed is so different. So we need to understand that cognitive reasoning and intellect that we measure in the Eurocentric culture is very different from place to place.
Right.
And we need to respect that, right? So cognitive brain. The other part of the brain, affective, which is your emotions, your feelings, your personality.
Right.
Most people in corporate know about discs, people who are spiritual, ideograms. This is all in the affective mind. It's how you feel, your emotions. Okay.
Right.
Now, there's this third part of the brain. It's called conative, C-O-N-A-T-I-V-E. I'm spelling it because most people who are here will have just heard that word for the first time, because we don't talk about this. And how I came across the conative brain was from being in a business coaching program. I was in Strategic Coach with Dan Sullivan. Anybody who knows him, he is the coach of all these great entrepreneurs. He's brilliant cognitively, but from an instinct standpoint, he's what's called a quick start. And he's out of 1 to 10, he's a 10 in that area, which means that risk taker, innovative, all that type of stuff. So instinct, you are born with. It is a part of your brain, and you have an MO. Why am I talking about this? Because most people get introduced this at some time, if their company's really innovative and forward thinking, in maybe a corporate environment. But when they say it really hits home is when they take it home. So they use it for high performing teams. When I work with people, it's about, I want to help you build a higher performing team. I want to help you have the right fit for who you employ. And this is something that we can use on a work level to excel professionally, lead teams, and make that type of environment excel by knowing our MO and everybody else in the organization's MO.
Right.
Then when you take this home and you start realizing, here's my MO, but here's my partner's MO, here's my kid's MO. Oh my gosh, you really start understanding why conflict arises.
Yes.
And how to resolve conflict, understanding how you're wired, because you're born like this, and that other people are wired completely differently. It allows you to have a respect for yourself. That's my method. It's called the respect method. Respect for yourself, but respect for other people and their differences. So Kathy Kolbe, who is now in her mid-80s and still teaching and absolutely cognitively brilliant, but what's called a quick start also, came up with this system because her father is the founder of one of the great IQ tests. And she saw there was something missing. She saw we got these really smart people who something's not quite clicking right. And we have these people that don't seem so bright, but yet they're excelling. What's going on here? Right. And I'm sure we all know people like that. I wrote a book called Too Smart to Be Struggling. That's the title. And when people look at that title, they're like, that's me. I'm just going to tell you, if you feel like you are smart and you are struggling, start with a Kolbe. Because it just very quickly in a 15-minute index will show you a piece about who you are, and you'll be like, oh my God. Oh my God. So that's why, Danielle, I said, you have to, if you've never had the Kolbe, I'm offering one to you. I'm offering one to the audience, because you need to find out your MO, your type. Briefly, the types, there's what's called a fact finder. Now, remember, there's no one type that's better than another type, and everything goes from 1 to 10, and a 10 is not better than a 1. It's just basically how you take action. So somebody who's a 1 to 3 takes action differently than somebody who's 4 to 6 or a 7 to 10. So the fact finder, the ultimate fact finder, we call it initiating when you're high in that area, is somebody who loves data and facts. And the first thing they're going to do is do their own research. You're listening to me today, and I'm saying all this stuff. and you're like, prove it to me, prove it to me. I'm going to do my own research. Now, let me just caution you, fact finders. We love you on the team because you will do the research that some of us will not do.
Right.
Totally. However, realize that when you're on Google, there is an algorithm that is confirmation bias. The more you research one way, you will get more back that way. So it is not unbiased.
Right.
Search engines are not unbiased. Wikipedia is not unbiased. I'm an intuitive. I can read people's energy. Wikipedia will say it's pseudoscience and it's not real and all of that. Well, when I work with clients, they're like, well, how do you know that? And it's 100% accurate. And when you read the internet, by who it's written by, Western culture, who doesn't buy a lot of this because they can't study it in a case controlled, double blind, retrospective, blah, blah, blah. It's not meant for you to have a pharmaceutical or a surgery. That's how things, you got to understand the bias behind research.
Right.
It's about having a medicine or a surgery or some kind of intervention so somebody else can make money. It's not meant for you to understand information to be able to heal yourself, which your body knows how to heal itself. And so people like me exist, and we don't get amplified on the internet, so we don't come high. Right. Because we're not selling a drug or a supplement or a procedure.
So for everybody that's listening, I raised my hand when we were talking about the fact finder. I am that person. However, I love what you said because it's so spot on. If I'm researching something, I will research it both ways, positive and negative. And really, we have to do that because you said, nobody can heal if it's biased. And it's absolutely true. And that leads us into, what are we trusting? Which is the other eye.
Yeah. So I think there are so many fact finders, especially when you get to these intellectual fields and people with a lot of degrees and certifications behind them. They are fact finders. I mean, it's not that I'm not a initiating fact finder. Right. I love the information too. Part of my design is subconsciously is as an investigator. We'll get to design and spiritual part. I'm an investigator. I mean, I couldn't be a doctor without it. And I like the thing that drives me banana about people doing their own research is you don't know how to read a study. You don't know how to tell whether it's a good study or not. When we go to school, we have classes on statistics and how to tell if something's a good study or not. And when we get to the end of reading the study and all the boring stuff in it, we'll be like, well, the data said this, and they wrote out a completely different conclusion than what the data says. Right. And so that conclusion is what the media picks up, and they haven't read the research study because it's mumbo jumbo that fact finder types like to dig into. So we'll let you'll do that. But I'm like, I look at enough of it to know, wait, but I just read this here. And this stuff is complicated. You have to be trained to learn how to do this. So this is not for the faint of heart, and you can learn to do this stuff on your own, but it's difficult. Most things you learn, somebody else is going to have to teach you to do. That's how we learn. We learn by other people teaching us, right?
100%. Absolutely.
Fact finder, we love you. I'm going to be interested to see when you have your Kolbe if you are a fact finder.
Okay.
Number 2 is what's called a follow through. And a follow through is how you organize and systematize. So the follow through are the people who organize and systematize. So if you're the person where we go in your kitchen and everything's all neat and laid out and everything like that, you're the person that does everything very methodically. Okay. So that I'm giving you the extremes of this, and those are the 7, 8, 9, 10. The people who are on the other end, there's not anything bad about it. It's just, this is the way you're going to take action primarily. So a follow through, and I'm married to a follow through. They're going to organize and systematize. Me, I'm what's called the next thing, a quick start. The quick start is how you deal with risk. Right. But this is how we take action, right? So the quick start are the people who are the visionaries, the innovators. They're the fire. Aim, think about it. Right. Jump off the ledge and then think, so what's going to happen? And we are the ones that make everybody else breathless. with fact finder types,
Mm-hmm.
because right now all the fact finders that are listening to me are saying, oh my gosh, she's going too fast. She's not giving me enough data, no detail. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Right. And so I understand you're like this. I want you to go do your own research. That's why you want to have your own Kolbe, KOLBE, and that's why I do them for people. I pay for them and doing for people for free because you have to have the experience. And once you have the Kolbe, and I do a debrief with you, so I give you, let me just give you the elements of what to look at first so you can use this.
Yeah.
You get a follow-up 18-page report with links and extra video. This is wonderful for the fact finder, but it's also put together in a way by Kathy Kolbe so that any of the types are going to be able to get what they need from the report. So it took me years before I got to the end of the 18 pages.
Right.
Which was last year when I became a Kolbe certified consultant. Then I dived into the, all the pages of my report. But when you told me I'm a 4294, those are my 4 numbers. I'm a 9 quick start. Once I find out, I was vindicated for being a shiny object person. Celebrate myself for being visionary. And when my husband says you're impulsive, I didn't get upset about it anymore because it's like, true, I am. This is what keeps innovation in society moving forward. But on the other side of that quick start is somebody who's a 1, 2, or 3. They're about retaining and restoring.
Right.
My husband's on that side. So the people who retain and restore keep us with what is good. They say, well, not so fast. Now, the other 4th type is called an implementer. This is actually the physical, tangible type thing. On one is the people who envision, and on the other end are the people who actually put things together. We would not get anything put together and really done and finished without people who are high implementers.
Right.
Okay. Now, that was a very quick overview.
Right.
Very, very high level overview. As I told you, my numbers are 4294. And when you dive into it, you will understand why I gave you the high level overview. But my instinct is always going to give you just the fewest things I need to give you. Right. Here's the outline. You need to know. Now let's go.
Let's go. Yeah. Dr. V, I'm a little scared because I feel like I hit everything that you were talking about.
Okay. So we'll see where you come out. Now, let me explain one thing about this. There's no one type that's better than another. What I said is there's an initiating type. Sometimes people are 9, 8. So they're 9 in one area, 8 or 8, 8. I have people who are in the same area there. And then we talk about the hierarchy of which is going to come first. So you know when I take action, which is likely to come first, because there's hierarchies of these things.
Sure.
Right? So when your numbers are close, we'll say, okay, here's how you will read this so that you will understand what you're doing. So you'll start deconstructing what you're doing and why you're doing it. The beauty of this, let me just say, in a work environment, you put together teams with cognitive diversity. So now we're in this time where everybody's talking about diversity, equity, inclusion. I'm like, you don't want to pick me just because I'm a woman or just because my skin is brown. You want to pick me because I'm a quick start and I'm going to vision for you. Period. You're going to strip all that away and realize my core genius is going to come up with innovation. It's just natural for me to be able to pull it out of the universe. Like that. Instinct. And it's part of your brain and the way you were born. It is not going to change. So teams you build with cognitive diversity. Research has been shown that these teams outperform a team put together any other way. And when you put it in a relationship and a family, you start being able to understand the way everybody is reacting and acting, and then play to everybody's strength and minimize conflicts. And you understand what vulnerabilities are in the relationships and what the strengths of the relationship are. So with me, 4294, and my husband, 5834, in the follow through and the quick start area, our numbers are 6 apart. If they're 4 or more apart, there's potential for conflict. So we can understand it. Even if you're the only partner who partners have this, You're the one that uses this. I understand that he's going to be the systematizer. So this morning, when he's giving me the dump of why we should do things after he's organized it all in his mind, I'm like, baby, I'm glad you did that. And I agree with you. Now, I came to that like 3 weeks ago to just do because, right. I'm jumped at the shiny object, did my investigation. But on the other side, I'm also intuitive, which is in my human design. And this is where we talk about the spiritual side. So we have imprinting, we have instincts, which can be very reliably measured, doesn't change over time, over your lifetime, by the Kolbe Index. And that's how you do things, how you take action when you're left to do things exactly the way you would do them when you're striving. The one natural part of you, intuition. I talk about this as your spiritual DNA and your life journey, your master path, what your purpose is, what you're really meant to do, who you're really meant to be with, and all that stuff. This is where it gets exciting. So backfindery people, I like to go out with Kolbe because you can go and get all the data and everything like that. When we get to the spiritual realm, you realize it's not well researched because there's not really big money to be made in it. So it's hard to get grants and everything. We can talk about why these things don't get researched, but we'll realize that, we all know Einstein, and this is the type of stuff he was studying. If you start really delving into what he was talking about, you realize it was all in that spiritual realm. And physics works in this way that really is making the universe go. And there's these universal laws that nobody teaches you until you like bump into them and say, why are things going this way? And you hear about these universal laws and then you're like, oh my God, how come no one ever told me this for? This is when they talk about things like The Secret, these are the secrets. They're all out there. You've been using them all your life. It's just no one ever explained them to you. I'm a medical intuitive, and it means I can assess people's energy without being around them, without knowing them. I can just sometimes and usually be quite accurate on what's going on in someone. And also the emotional and spiritual links to what's going on, because you got to fix your mind, body, spirit. So you got to get in balance. You got to fix all these things. So when you're having a physical problem, an illness or an injury, it is the universe yelling at you, yelling loud at you that you need to do something different. So people who have had strange, rare, and peculiar things happen to them in all kinds of ways, they find people like me who are intuitives because they're Western trained doctors with all the degrees on the wall say, I don't know what's wrong and there's nothing I can do. Now, they don't say I don't know what's wrong because they don't want to admit that they don't know something. That's when they tell you that you're crazy and it's all in your head.
Here, have a pharmaceutical. It's going to make everything better.
Exactly. Because that's what they've been taught. And they've been taught how to give them to you, but now how to take them away. So all you out there who are going for the new weight loss drugs, remember, you've been taught how, and there's no fault in doing this. I understand it, but realize that doctors and researchers have been taught how to start it, but not how to stop it. And so you're dependent on this because you're not going to know how to stop it because we haven't figured and you've got to realize that it's purposely done like that. It's purposely done because that's how pharmaceuticals make money. If you're on it forever, you're making money. All right. Now that's a show of itself. So let's delve into the spiritual you.
Yes, let's do.
I use human design because it gives you this beautiful, what's called body graph to be able to visualize when I'm talking to you, and you can go back to. It's just, I have an astrologer and I've studied with him. I study it and I just find it so complex. This is the way I see it. I'm like, how am I ever going to figure this all out? But I haven't found, and I've studied under people, I haven't found human design to be this way. Now, it may just be that it's my core, my human design teacher told me this is just who you are and how you operate things. So you're going to think this is easy because this is how you are spiritually designed. Okay. So for those of you out there who say, what is he talking about? It's not easy. I understand that part of my spiritual design is understanding this.
Right.
This is about who I am as a
Right.
being and a purpose and a master path.
Mm-hmm.
So human design puts all in a bow: the natal chart with astrology, I
Mm-hmm.
Ching, Kabbalah, quantum neutrino physics, and the chakra system. It is
Right.
not a one-to-one correlation, but it has elements of all these things in it. So
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that you must provide is your birth date, your birth time, and your birthplace. Now, people will say, I don't know what time I was born.
Right.
To say two things about that. One, if you were born in the United States, simply write to wherever your records are held and ask them for your birth time. They do have it.
They have it. Yeah.
I was born in Pennsylvania. They don't normally put it on the birth certificate. So I had a birth certificate, no time. I just wrote them and told them specifically I wanted the time of my birth on it. It is
Mm-hmm.
important, the time of day, very important. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you say, but I don't know who my parents are, or I'm adopted, I don't have access to those records, there
Mm-hmm.
are a group of people who are very learned at determining this, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Vedic astrologists are generally able to figure out very accurately the time you were born.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how. So there's some people out there who feel deflated because they don't have that information. And I'm
Right.
saying, never fear. There's always somebody around who can help you.
That's right. There's always an answer somewhere.
So let's talk about the very high level of human design, which has the types. And
Okay.
this is where you start with any energetic system. Start high level and realize that you can't rush this. It's going to sink in over time. And so that's why I start out saying, here are just the types, and
Mm-hmm.
giving you as much of an explanation as I can, knowing that if you decide that you want to have it done, you can go do this on your own. But
Mm-hmm.
on my site, I offer it to people for free. And when you get your chart back, I send you videos with an explanation about your type.
Mm.
I haven't seen that anywhere where
Yeah.
somebody's doing that. So we'll do your chart. And then a lot of times for people, I'll see something special on it, like especially the people I do interviews with, and I'll be like, I'm just going to make you a 5-minute loom video and tell you some other things that I see here that I want you to start with, right? Because it's more than that. So let's talk about the types. There are 5 types, and those 5 types can pretty much be divided into 2: the energy types, the non-energy types. So most of the world fits into energy types, and those are some type of generator. So there are 2 types of generators. One is called a generator, and one is called a manifesting generator. So generator means you have the center defined called the sacral motor center. It is a motor center. It is a vitality center, and it gives you access to unlimited energy.
Right.
This is the workers of the world, and there is nothing wrong with being a worker, because there's some of us who, I'm a non-energy type. I'll just give you that. I get work done, but I'm not meant to push it forward, push it forward, push it forward. Okay. So let's talk about the generator. When they're in their flow and they're happy, they're doing the work they are supposed to be doing, and they can almost limitlessly do it with little rest and everything like that. So if you find out you're a generator and you have burned out, it's because you are saying yes to something that's a no. Okay, now I'm going to talk about that yes, no in a minute. The next type is what's called a manifesting generator, and they have a defined throat, and their a motor center is attached to the throat.
Right.
The manifesting generator is a super powerful chart because they can initiate and do the work. They don't need anybody. I'm married to a manifesting generator. He doesn't necessarily need anybody, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you find out your type, the thing that happens is people have type envy. Don't have type envy. We need all the pieces of the human puzzle. So if you think, oh my God, I don't have this particular chart, you are built and powerful in your own way.
Right.
And this is for you to learn what you are from a spiritual being, and then be able to flow into it and feel good about it, and realize that everybody else is completely different. So I love seeing charts because I get excited with everybody's chart. I say, everybody, I get excited with all the charts I do and I look at because I see, oh, they can do this and that and this and that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a little bit more than the type at that time because I'm putting other elements in, but I'm like, wow, this person can.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm looking now this is my slant on life. When I look at people's charts, I'm looking for their strengths. I also look at their vulnerabilities so they can understand what they are and then understand how to navigate with vulnerabilities, right? So there are other people who will read the opposite way, where they're going to tell you about what your vulnerabilities are more, right? This is just a different slant of the way, and you'll feel you will come out of this feeling different ways. If somebody's telling you all your weaknesses, all your vulnerabilities, you're going to feel a lot weaker. I feel just saying that. It's interesting. My whole energy is weak talking about that. So manifesting generator. Now, let me tell you a few famous people who fit into these. This is 68% of the population. The majority of the world fits into a generator category, which means we are in generator energy. And everybody thinks the way generators do everything is the right way to do things. But it's not for everybody. And this is how we've been taught.
Yes.
But that's the majority of people. Okay. So famous generators. Oprah, the Dalai Lama. Now, I want to tell you about those two people because Oprah, I think she doesn't have a defined throat even because she amplifies other people. When you define, you amplify other people, right? Sometimes you'll feel like, I don't have a defined throat. That means I can't manifest. Oh, no. You just manifest differently.
Yes.
Right? So that when we look at your chart, it doesn't mean now the throat is the manifesting center. If you don't have a defined throat, we will show you in your chart how to manifest energetically. Okay. This is what this is about. Manifesting generators. I love this. I love I don't even remember. I remember two manifest. I can't even remember any other ones. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton. They're both manifesting generators. I just, everybody, they're just so world renowned. Right. And we've seen them going up against each other. And people who are manifesting generators tend to be like the Pied Piper. They can get people to follow them kind of no matter what. And like you might be looking, if you're not drinking their manifesting generating juice. Now, I'm not a generator or a manifesting generator, so I'm always looking like, what's going on here? Okay. So energy types can do work, and with the manifesting part, initiate that. 68% of the population are some type of generator. Other 32% are the non-energy types, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. The reflector are the people who have no defined centers, like a mirror. Right. They're reflecting back on the rest of creation what's going on. Right. You're in a relationship with somebody who's a reflector, you're going to love them or hate them. Right. On who you are. Right. Yeah. They're great from a work standpoint to have them on your team because these are like the chameleons. They can almost fit anywhere and do anything. Now, reflectors are only 1% of the population. Wow. You're floating around. You're not going to meet a lot of these people. We have these invisible energetic bonds where there's spiritual and intuitive knowing, right? So there's going to be other beings who there's going to be that spiritual and intuitive knowing with, right? Yeah. So reflectors, and those are the people also who tend to be nature lovers, one with nature. They're a non-energy type. They need to be out of the generator world and make sure they get a lot of rest because they can burn out very easily because when you are open completely, you're absorbing everything else. That's all you're doing is absorbing. Yeah. Pushing out anywhere you're absorbing. Right. So if you find out you're a reflector, it's okay for you to have your own house. Yeah. Right. I'm going to tell you, when I got married, I told my husband I was keeping my own place. I'm not a reflector. I was keeping my own place. And it's just because I need space, time, and I need to be, I didn't know what it was when I was telling him this.
Right.
I married him before I knew exactly this piece of information about myself. But
Mhm.
once I knew it, I was like, that's why I needed my own house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes
All
for
right.
a good marriage sometimes, y'all.
It sure does. Separate beds,
Yeah.
separate bedrooms. Now, think about what we talked about, the imprinting and why you think things should be a certain way. Culture, society. I mean,
Right.
there's other cultures in society. Everybody has their separate bedroom, husbands and
Mhm.
wives, and you know what I'm saying? And it's
Right.
normal. You don't
Right.
sleep with the same person in the bed every day, and there's nothing wrong with that. So
Yeah.
that's part of the respect method. The first E is about evaluating your beliefs. Where did they come from? Right.
Right.
Cognitively do some of these things, right?
Right.
So, reflector, 8% of the population are manifestors. He's like, I want to be a manifester.
Yeah.
These are people who seem like they make magic happen.
Right.
They are the initiators, and things just seem like poof, it just happened. How are they
Right.
doing that? And that sounds like the most wonderful thing to be. However, understand about the manifester, their aura is actually more repulsive than it is magnetic.
Hmm.
A lot of times they rub people the wrong way, not because they're trying to,
Right.
and they may seem rude or inconsiderate. Or now, what do you do about that? They're manifesting, and they're like, but there's something that could irritate you about them, and you're like, why is this person irritating me? I have a coach who's a manifester, and boy, can he deliver sometimes. And he's not trying to do this. This is just his energy, where he'll say something to somebody and it'll be like right. And he's not trying to be mean or anything like that, but his aura is just put offish, let's call it sometimes. And he's not in a heart sense that way at all.
Right.
Okay? All right. Now, manifestors, how do you navigate that particular way? Is that you have to inform. You inform people what's going on as much as you can.
Right.
Doesn't mean you change what you're going to do or stop manifesting. You just inform, and then people are able to accept the energy easier when you inform them.
Right.
So that's the same also for a manifesting generator. That informing before you're doing or anything is something that works really well.
Right.
Inform everybody of what's going to happen, and they won't just be pissed, because this energy will just piss you off when you don't understand what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
The final type, and this is where I sit, is called a projector. And the projector is 22% of the population. We are considered the wise guides. And you say, well, I want to be a wise guide, except we have to wait for recognition and an invitation. We cannot give you our opinion until we are asked to render the opinion.
Right.
So my human design teacher and coach said to me, and I tell all my projectors this because it's the perfect thing, it is from the Bible: do not cast your pearls before swine.
Right.
You're a projector, and you really do know. You have this knowing, and you can see it when nobody else can see it.
Right.
But you cannot render opinions if you're not asked, because they're all swine. You have to get somebody who knows a pearl who will ask you.
Right.
Now, the back and forth between this is success versus bitterness. Success versus bitterness. So in projectors, a lot of them become very bitter, because this is part of my book title, How to Get Seen and Heard. Because you'll get bitter because you feel like you're invisible.
Right.
And you'll feel like people are stealing your ideas, even because when you give your ideas, nobody will ever acknowledge that you gave your ideas if they didn't invite you. So they'll think they're their own. They're not purposely stealing them, but you're invisible unless you've been recognized. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So think about that. A lot of people now in the spiritual, I have a lot of projector clients, and they are angry when they hear this, because they've lived a life where they've been unappreciated a lot.
Right.
They've been a doormat or a superwoman, one of these things where they've done a whole lot, but yet they didn't get the recognition and appreciating that they felt that they deserved.
Right. Yeah.
But once you understand whatever type you are, you can learn how to flow into it, follow the strategy for your type, and they get what you need and deserve. So I'm going to give you some famous projectors. Probably the most famous projector. There's so many ones that are really famous that you're going to see how they are. Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama.
Wow.
Princess Di, Queen Elizabeth. Now, these are people who they say projectors just have a way of being. And a magnetic, attractive aura. And I love to use Princess Di for that.
Yeah.
Because everybody wanted to just watch her, and you loved her. And you didn't even know what did we love about her? What did we love about her before? I mean, she ended up doing humanitarian stuff and all this other type of thing. She did, but when she first came out at 19 and just said,
hi,
anything, but we all loved her, right?
Right.
But we still feel that way about her. Same. Think about Queen Elizabeth. What did she do?
Right.
But we all just, for some reason, love her.
Right.
But if you look at her as an energy and an aura, you're just like, I like her.
Right.
Right. So think about, you start looking at people and thinking about them in their spiritual design. And you look at yourself as that spiritual being, and then the other elements in purpose and destiny. Now let's bring it into relationships.
Yes.
I'm going to give you a famous relationship in the royal family, relationships, because everybody knows these characters the world over.
Right.
King Charles, 2 wives. Okay, so we are energetically attracted to people who meet our energetic needs. When you're attracted to someone, it doesn't just have to be romantic. It can be a friendship or in a family or something like that. A lot of times you're attracted to somebody because when you're together, you meet their energetic needs, they meet yours.
Right.
Centers are filled, gates are coming together to make channels, and it feels really good.
Right.
Right. So for instance, my husband and I mean, from the beginning when I met him, I felt like there's something about him. There's something going on. There's something special. And it turns out that when you put us together, we are what's called a 9-0 couple. You put us together, it fills all the centers. Okay. So King Charles and Princess Diana were a 9-0 couple. You put them together, all the centers are filled. And you're saying, well, what happened?
Right.
You need to go deeper. And when you look at the electromagnetic bonds, and these are the ones that give the sizzle to the relationship and make it feel irresistible, they have only one electromagnetic bond. Well, one was enough to at least that they had the children, because you're put together for sole purposes. So there they are. They produce the children that they produce, and they were supposed to be there in the world and chosen on a spiritual level. So they had enough to do that, right? So one over there. Now you go to, there's no companionship channels. Those are the ones where you have friendship. When you get to the dominance channels, only one of them has dominance channel, which means that one, there's 2 of them, and that person's going to dominate a lot over the other one. And when you get to the compromise channels, there's a lot. That's where the vulnerabilities in a relationship are. So look at them from a spiritual standpoint, you can see, even though they were a 9-0 couple, why it wasn't the glue you thought it was going to be.
Right.
Especially when you look at Camilla and Charles.
Right.
They are also a 9-0 couple.
Interesting.
They energetically meet each other's needs. When you look at the electromagnetic channels, those are those sizzle channels, those imperative to reproduce, I can't keep my hands off of you channels. 7 of them.
Makes sense.
So Diana didn't ever have a chance.
Right.
And it's nobody's fault. This is how the universe made all 3 of them.
Right.
Right. Nobody did this to anybody else. It wasn't about personality. It wasn't political. We're talking spiritual and energetic.
Right.
When you go down over to the other side of the chart, you can see when you look at dominance channels, he has some dominance channels. She has some dominance channels, pretty equal. So nobody dominates over the other one. Not a lot of compromise channels there going on. So Charles, who's a generator, meant to work and rubs you the wrong way, because generators aren't necessarily meant to be the people that are out there shining.
Right.
It's like, meh, we don't like him.
Right.
Camilla's what makes Charles palatable.
Right.
Energetically, as a couple, you're a different being when you're in a couple. They're palatable and fulfill each other's energetic needs so they are strong together.
Mm.
If you look at people like that who are celebrities,
Mm-hmm.
those people were really spiritually set aside as teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So think about all those people that were watching, and like your biggest spiritual teachers are a lot of these famous people. So,
Right.
I start, like I mentioned, two of our famous manifesting generators, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and people have a strong feeling about them one
Yeah.
way or the other. There's there's no in between.
Right.
And you have a strong feeling, something in you is being triggered. Those are spiritual lessons.
Yeah.
When you start looking at that person and you feel really like you like them a lot, or you
Mm-hmm.
can't stand them, there's spiritual lessons in that. Because
Yeah.
if it were just meh, you wouldn't get a spiritual lesson. You wouldn't pay it attention.
Right.
Think about these people who are on that stage that we're watching as a couple, another 9-0 couple, Kanye and Kim, they're a 9-0 couple.
Mm.
He is a projector.
Right.
Success versus bitterness. He says success, but when he ain't getting things the way he wants to, boy, is he bitter, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You made me think about how many times a woman will be in, a session and they start talking about their spouse or their partner and they start saying, it's so good except for X, Y, and Z, and how that just lack of alignment is really what's pulling them into a different space.
Yes. And realize whoever you're in that relationship with is probably your biggest spiritual teacher at that moment in time. You were with them for a particular reason.
Yeah.
Like, I look at my husband and how we come together like that. And, energetically, almost immediately, I knew there was something special there that I couldn't even verbalize. Like,
Right.
I remember going into the party that we met and we didn't even talk, except I said hello to him when I was introduced the first time, and I was being introduced to a lot of people in the room because I was coming in and I was a new person. And then at the table, when they were serving dinner, this guy comes up to me and says, "That's really good right there. You should try it." I didn't even look, but that was him.
Right.
And so a year later, we were married.
Right.
But we started off, and I remember when I went to that party and I looked right at him, he turned and looked at me. I remember that. I remember when he said that at the table.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what was going on at
Right.
that time. And had he not become my husband, I would not have remembered that necessarily. I wouldn't have. But I remember going in and feeling something. And I remember, I remember where I was when I met him and how I met him, and, the same thing. And we'll tell the story, and the stories are remarkably similar. But I also remember I was talking to a friend, and this is getting really spiritual, last night about soul retrieval. I felt like I had an experience with my husband where part of my soul was being retrieved at one point. I look back on it, but I remember the first time I looked at him and just as like, I feel like I know him, but I know I just met him, but I know him. And I remember him looking at me, and this was like early in the morning, very early in our relationship. And just like, it was a glance in that jolt, right? And it's almost like, something in me came together. But you have to also realize when people say you complete me, that on a soul level, on a spiritual level, a lot of times in a relationship, there are these electromagnetic spiritual bonds where it'll make you feel complete. Right. Or at least more than you were when you were just all alone. Now you have to learn how to be a complete spiritual being without someone else. And a lot of us have never done that.
Right. Yeah. You just made me go to the meeting of my husband, and I'll share that because he was at a bar and I was at a bar. It's no secret to anyone. I started my my career as a news anchor. It was September 11th, the September 11th. Yes. And I was there with some coworkers, and he was with his best friend. They had just been having a conversation about, at some point you'll meet the one. And I walk in, I lock eyes with him. We say nothing. And I said to the group of people that I was with, that's the man I'm going to marry. We didn't speak to each other.
That's amazing. You know, you're on your spiritual journey, and there
Yeah.
are events and people that you are supposed to meet and be with. And what I will say about that is, when I was learning who I wasn't necessarily being my authentic self. And because I made those decisions like that, not knowing, because I've done
Right.
what I was taught to the best of my ability. I was an
Right.
A student. That's how I got
Mhm.
to Princeton. That's how I graduated from medical school with honors. Even
Right.
though I'm a quick start, I know how to take the test and do that work. Right.
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 Yeah.
I was doing it to perfection of what somebody else taught me how to do,
Mhm.
not being
Mhm.
me. And
Right.
that's what I reveal. So when I talk about what happened in my marriage, and I mean, I became severely clinically depressed.
Mm.
This is not get really on the couch with the psychologist twice a week, feeling
Right.
like I wanted to die, and
Right.
hard to make it from appointment to appointment because I
Mhm.
was so depressed because I
Right.
didn't know who I was.
Right.
The psychologist said to me, don't be so quick to get over it. She told me about dark nights of the soul.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, I would not recommend that anybody try to do this on their own.
No.
You need therapists, coaches, and teachers.
Right.
You do.
Yeah.
But in order for you to learn, you have to be in the motion of doing something so you can course correct. So I'm sure
Absolutely.
you have clients that say, I'm working on myself. And that's their
Right.
self-sabotaging pattern to not do anything.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
I hear that all the time.
Absolutely.
I'm working on
Yeah.
myself. When I ask people, so what are you doing now? I'm working on myself. I'm like,
Yeah.
they're really stuck in their
Yeah.
self-sabotage. I'm telling you this, you're listening to it. I know but I don't tell
Yeah.
you you're stuck in your self-sabotage pattern, because
Mhm.
me telling you that is not going to get you out of it. Now,
Right.
somebody listening to this conversation would help them. But if I'm talking to you and we're having an interview and you're thinking about and exploring and you're still in that pattern,
Mhm.
we say, don't you realize that's a self-sabotage pattern? It's not going to
Right.
make you say, yeah, it is. Now it's time to work together. No, that's not what
Right.
happens. And the people who, in order to really benefit from coaching, you have to be ready,
Mhm.
willing, and able.
Right.
And if you're still telling yourself you're still working from us, you're not ready or willing at all.
Right. This
If,
is a priority.
if you're just
Yeah.
listening to a bunch of
Mhm.
podcasts, fact finders, and watching YouTube videos, because fact finders can really, they're people who can really get into the analysis paralysis, and they
Right.
never have enough data. They don't
Right.
feel like they ever know enough about somebody. They don't trust anybody. They say they trust themselves, but they really don't trust themselves, because that's why they keep looking for more facts.
Right. Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm talking about. If
Yes, I
you are a
do.
fact finder, you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking
Yeah, I do. I
about.
do. The interesting question that keeps coming to mind for me is, okay, so we do these two, the human design and the Kolbe, and we have an understanding of who we are. What then potentially changes for us?
So you learn how to love you and trust you. People talk about self-love.
Mhm.
Well, how do you learn how to love yourself?
Right.
So this is when I'm coaching people, there's the respect method, and these
Mhm.
are all steps in it. They do not sit alone. There is a
Right.
process. Or reflect and take radical responsibility. You have to know where you are
Right.
before you can know where you're going. And you have to take responsibility for everything that was created in your life, the stuff you like and the stuff you don't like.
Right.
There are
Yeah.
no passes on the things that didn't turn out the way they did, even when you want to blame him.
Right. And
Okay.
it's the only way to heal. It's the only way to heal. You have to have step one. You
You
have
got
to.
to admit you got a wound so that you go get help for
Uh-huh. Yeah,
it. Right.
absolutely.
Evaluate your beliefs. So where did those come from? And when we
Mhm.
figure out what beliefs, you usually end up stripping away so much, you're like, now who am I? Then
Right.
once you strip those away, then we talk about bringing other ones in that serve you and that are yours, that you chose.
Right.
This is for surrender to your spirit. This is about really surrendering and understanding your instincts, your intuition, who
Mhm.
you are, but also surrendering that other people are who they are,
Right.
and they're not going to be changed. And this is a step of acceptance
Yes.
of yourself and acceptance of other people, not
Mhm.
toleration, not I'm going to tolerate it. I fully accept it and I feel good about it. I feel good about who I am and I feel good about who everybody else is too. This
Mhm.
is when you go from victim to a creator. Really, you are the power. You're
Right.
not in victim mode anymore. And that takes a
Mhm.
lot of practice. So that surrender to your spirit is important to learn that. And
Mhm.
then P is for pause. Stop
Mm.
doing things that don't work.
Right.
Take a break.
Yeah.
Takes time and space for yourself. Some
Mhm.
people need to take a sabbatical from their job. Some people need to step back from a relationship. But when you
Right.
step back, doesn't mean that you stay out of it totally. Some people
Right.
put themselves on that permanent pause in relationships and think that that's the solution. No, you're never going to grow like that, right?
Yeah.
So, but you're going to decide. You're going to take a pause, and you're going to decide and create what
Mhm.
amount of pause you need. And that's
Right.
what we do in coaching, to figure out what pause is going to work for you. And it's going to be significant. It's not going to be like a day. Okay.
Right.
It may take a significant pause. And this makes people hyperventilate. I mean, eyes get
Right.
big and the palpitations, right?
Uh-huh.
Because people
Yeah.
can't see at that moment how they're going to do it. But this is why I act as your coach and your accountability to help usher you across that pause bridge, because it's hard.
Right. It
I know,
is hard.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then E is for elevate your energy.
Mhm.
When you elevate your energy, you are able to let go of those lower vibration emotions, the
Mhm.
shame, the fear, the guilt, in order to go to a higher level, to attract higher
Right.
level, higher vibration people. You have to be on that vibration.
Amen.
How do you get there? You have to let go of the lower vibrations and then you go up exponentially. But in spiritual growth, it is not
Mhm.
about the cognitive brain.
Right.
So you can feed that, but you're going to be doing stuff that's going to feel incredibly difficult and uncomfortable, which is where the growth's going to be taken. I'm there to keep you accountable. The
Right.
coaches are all there to keep you accountable.
Right.
C, commit to your values and boundaries. This is where
Mm.
we give you lists of values so that you can look and say, no, no, yes, yes, and we can whittle it down
Right.
to your top 10, your top 5. This is what really I value, not somebody else's, but yours.
Right.
Only when you know your values and you can verbalize them and picture
Mhm.
them and they
Right.
feel good to you, are you going to be able to define your boundaries and stick with them?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then T, and this is the penultimate, trust and take action.
Mm.
Trust and take action.
Yeah.
Trust is about trusting you.
Mhm.
And what I use with my clients is I teach them how to use their spiritual design to be able to intuitively and energetically assess other people, places, and situations. So I'll
Mhm.
use charts of clients, like patients I've had in the past, and
Mhm.
just say, here's the first name, last initial, and their age. I want you to do the reading on them. And then you
Right.
start to know how your intuition comes in. And you
Right.
get repeatable. So you're going to get feedback and then how to make it stronger. What's the purpose of that? So we all have this ability. When I say
Mhm.
I'm an intuitive, I'm just like LeBron James or Steph Curry doing it, right?
Right.
I have it there. It's very strong and I've got coached in it. So I'm even stronger at it.
Right.
Notice I got coached in it and I'm even
Yeah.
stronger at it. Not I just willy-nilly did it.
Right.
I have
Yeah.
other people, I practice it. I learn more about it. You're
Mhm.
always in a learning mode, even when you're the teacher, which
Right.
is, how it
Agreed.
works, right? So
Mhm.
when you learn how your particular intuition feels, then you can learn how to trust yourself
Right.
because you're going to know that you're right. And I put you through exercises so you can verify that you are right. I
Yeah.
give you exercises to be able to do that, and your confidence builds. So then
Right.
when you go out in the world, if you're a generator or manifesting generators, you're going to use your sacral center. You're going to ask yourself yes or no questions. You're not
Mhm.
going to ask yourself open-ended questions
Right.
because generators and manifesting generators, it's yes or no. because they're not open-ended people. They're yes or no people, but I can get you there through yes or no. So
Right.
how you tap your intuition as a generator or manifesting generator is to ask yourself yes or no questions. So
Mhm.
meet something in a situation. Do I feel good about that? Heed whatever answer comes to you. This is what
Yeah.
happens in relationships. People override that.
Yes.
Because the no will come, but they'll logically tell themselves why it should be a yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And
Yeah.
those who are the non-energy types usually have to look at what's their authority. People who are emotional have to know if you're an emotional wave, you don't make decisions in that wave. You can't be high, you can't be low, you
Right.
can't be in the middle. So anybody who's emotional and emotionally floods their partner or anything like that, if you get somebody who's not emotional, they're going to be overwhelmed by your emotion. Undefined emotional, they can feel everybody's emotions a lot. So there's where feeling emotions a lot is like, stop that.
Yeah, please.
Right.
Yeah.
So someone comes and floods me, it's going to be like, ah. But also with the undefined emotional center, you tend to be pretty calm and even keel. And sometimes people will feel like you're unfeeling because you're calm when they're being all emotional. And why are people emotional a lot? Because it's been imprinted upon them and they've been shown how you're supposed to feel about certain things and how you're supposed to react.
Right.
So you have to start to unravel.
With all of this, I think it's so important. I think everything we've talked about is so important and could really change the trajectory of your life. If you understand all of the pieces of yourself and why you do what you do, outside of therapy and all the things that happen, right? How empowering it is to take this piece of yourself and actually run instead of crawl. I think it's so important.
You're saying about therapy. Let me say one thing. Therapy is not a substitute for coaching, and coaching is not a substitute for therapy.
Absolutely. 100%.
Because somebody will be like, well, I'm in therapy. A therapist and a coach do two different things.
That's right. That's why I do both. That's right. Yeah. Because we have to be able to look at everything from 2 angles, right? Or 50 angles, depending on what we're dealing with. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. And when you're a therapist, a lot of times you've been taught by a particular school.
Right.
Where you use that process, which is not the same as coaching and accountability.
100%. It would benefit everyone to have both angles, to absolutely understand yourself, from all of the human design to the Kolbe to why we do what we do, trusting our intuition, all of these things. If there was one thing that our audience could walk away with to use today that really would, besides understanding all these pieces, what would it be? What would you hand over to them to say, this is it?
Learn who you are. You ask your system, who am I? Study yourself. Learn who you are, and then be who you are.
Brilliant advice. Brilliant advice. You mentioned the test and your website. Could you please provide those to us so that way people can really start owning themselves fully?
I would love to. drveronica.com, drveronica.com. And also I will mention that on my website, I have a relationship quiz. What's your number one relationship mistake? 38,000 people so far have taken this.
Wow.
It takes 5 minutes to take. And it's the first step of helping you reflect. If you just be like, I'm not ready for a Kolbe, I don't want to know my human, I just want to know a little piece of information about myself. So come to the site, take the quiz.
So I end, although I don't want to end our conversation, I end the podcast the same way, which is to ask you to provide us with 3 gratitudes. It can be anything, but 3 gratitudes of yours that you feel have been instrumental in your life.
So first, I am extraordinarily grateful that I have these wonderful parents. My father is deceased now, but the universe put me with these beautiful souls. So part of my life and the way things have gone are because my parents, who are wonderful people, and also had a wonderful vision for me. So the imprint was fabulous. Okay. I'm also grateful for the universe putting wonderful men in my life who have who act or have acted as my husbands and dealt with my mess.
Oh, come on.
Both of them. My first husband is a wonderful man. And so, he's in his life doing but we have come to the point where we can help each other. We're not
Right.
best friends, but if I need something or he needs something, we will reach out to each other. And so there was a level of trust that was built because of that. So, and my current husband, who is one of my biggest spiritual teachers and partners, and I'm grateful for him. And the other, I'm grateful for my dogs.
I love that. I have two. I get it.
Doggies, Artemis and Apollo. Dog is God spelled backwards.
Beautiful gratitudes. Thank you so much for taking the time to really open our eyes to something, these paths that can really change the way we show up. I thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful that you invited me.
What an interesting and eye-opening conversation. Since this conversation was recorded, I was able to have my own human design and Kolbe Index done. I was spot on with where I identify myself and the way that I process. It really gave me confirmation of how I think, feel, and how I engage with the world. It was very interesting. I encourage you to do the same. Head to Dr. Veronica's website at www.drveronica, and that's veronica.com to learn more about yourself. You can also follow her on Instagram at Dr. Veronica. Thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. If you've enjoyed these tips or bettering your life and are seeking daily inspiration and additional tools and tips or even therapy and counseling, you can follow me on social media at Get Your Life Together Girl on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and now Clapper. Or you can visit our show notes, blog, and my website at getyourlifetogethergirl.com. Please feel free to share this episode with family or friends as it helps spread this message to those who need it. I also invite you to check out my new 15-day affirmation course where I take you on a journey how to use your brain chemistry to meet and develop your greatest potential and use it for your benefit. That starts right now on Insight Timer. It's linked in the show notes. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.